Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in wherever you're watching, whether it's the Stuttering Craig channel or the Craig Talks News channel, which this video will actually be posted on both channels. I'll do this from time to time, whether it has to do with news or Nintendo or classic games. In this case, it has to do with both Nintendo and news and Super Mario Brothers, which I love, which I think hits both channels very, very well. So if you are new to the Craig Talks News channel, or if you're watching on the Stuttering Craig channel, make sure you go watch and subscribe to the Craig Talks News channel. I've included a link down below. It's my channel where I talk about gaming news and entertainment and all sorts of stuff. If you're watching in the Craig Talks News channel, make sure you go subscribe to the Stuttering Craig channel. It's mostly nostalgia and retro-based stuff, which once again today, it's all about both, which is very exciting. So video gets posted on both channels. With that said, I'm very, very stoked about this. This was dropped right before Christmas, so most people haven't had a chance to see this yet, but I have not watched this whole video yet, only just a few minutes of it. There was a prototype of Super Mario Brothers found. Super Mario World found, which I think is probably one of the best, maybe one or two Mario games out there. I love Mario World. It's by far the best Mario adventure on the Super Nintendo. And like I said, Odyssey's pretty outstanding, but Mario World, just for the sheer level of jump from NES to Super Nintendo, was spectacular. But I'm very excited about video game history. I'm very excited to see how this game has progressed. And this was apparently 10 months prior to the game hitting shelves in the United States from October, I think October 25th, 1990. So this was, like I said, several months before it hit the NES. Let's go watch this video. This is from the people over at Forest of Illusion, which, by the way, love your brand name. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Forest of Illusion. And because they brought us this, which is outstanding, and narrated by my good old friend, Gaming Historian, who got to start over on Screw Attack way back in the day. Let's check this thing out. Once again, watch all the way to the end with me, and go subscribe to Forest of Illusion. Let's check this thing out.
In November of 1990, Nintendo officially released their newest hardware, the Super Famicom. Included within the launch lineup of games was the highly anticipated fourth installment of the Super Mario series, Super Mario World.
What's interesting here, just right at the very beginning, if I recall, this actually says Super Mario Brothers 4, which I always thought was really interesting because I never thought this was Super Mario Brothers 4. I always thought this was just like an entirely different thing, just because it didn't say Super Mario Brothers on it. But that's just me.
After 1988's Super Mario Bros. 3, Mario fans all over the world were dreaming of more Mario. They couldn't wait to get their hands on the newest game in the series. Unfortunately, North Americans weren't as lucky.
The greatest video game ad of all time, this one right here, the Super Nintendo. Not you're playing with power, superpower. It tells you everything you need to know.
They'd have to wait almost an entire year for the Super Nintendo to make it to store shelves. In an attempt to fill the wait, Nintendo released various titles Japan never got. These titles were NES Play Action Football and Star Tropics.
Whoa, I didn't know Japan never got Star Tropics. That's crazy to think about. Once again, I'm going to start the push now. Star Tropics guy for Smash. Just going to throw it out there. Because why not?
Meanwhile, developers at Nintendo of America were hard at work with localizing Super Mario World for international audiences. During the development and
I love how everybody, and I know lots of starting and stopping, everybody points this out. You can't walk. This isn't a path that's clear. Why is he going backwards? Blah, 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 blah. Especially in like the in the commercial for it. It's great.
Audiences. During the development and localization of games, certain aspects are changed to help the game better suit the region and even have extra features for review purposes. This build is
definitely a debug mode right there.
Certainly no exception. It contains graphical differences, dialogue differences, and even some debugging features. Let's take a look at what this build has to offer.
Oh, this is going to be very, very exciting. I'm very excited for this, even if it's just tiny little differences. That's very exciting. And the fact that we're looking at this, this is 10 months out. The game should be pretty close to completion, but just tiny differences make for like someone who loves this game so much is going to be very, very exciting to see. Once again, if you're new, hit the thumbs up button and of course subscribe.
First, let's start off with the graphical differences. Right off the bat, you can see that the title screen may seem a bit odd, especially to those of you who are from the United States and Europe.
I'm guessing the Super Mario Brothers 4 up here.
This is because the main logo here matches with the Japanese version of the game,
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, okay, maybe there was something else different. And they're right.
which had a large shadow behind the colorful lettering. The title screen seen here is essentially the same as the Japanese version, just with the text translated into English. Some of you more astute viewers may notice the absence of the Super Mario Bros. 4 subtitle that is usually associated with this point in the game's development. There were remnants of these graphics left over in the retail US version of the game, but upon taking a look at the prototype build using external tools...
By the way, it doesn't really look like a 4, does it? It's just because it's weird connecting. I don't know, whatever.
No such tiles seem to have been created yet. These tiles are also absent from the retail Japanese version of the game, although the subtitle still appeared on the Japanese box art as well as promotional materials. Leaked files from July 2020's GigaLeak revealed that there were quite a few revisions of the US title screen. The final version that we all know and love, the Super Mario Bros. 4 version seen in various bits of promotional footage, the Japanese-English hybrid title, which is seen in the build we present today, and an interesting version of the Super Mario Bros. 4 logo that was meant for the Nintendo Super System at arcades.
I actually owned a Nintendo Super System. I sold it maybe a couple years ago, but I owned one of these and it was awesome. Very cool just to have. Had F-Zero, had Super Mario Brothers, it had Super Tennis in it. I mean, it was very, very cool to own. I always wanted to have one of those big old giant Super Nintendo controller. Anyways, ended up selling it to a buddy, but it was very cool to own for a very short amount of time.
From these files, we can make an educated guess that our build predates the subtitled variants and was one of the first prototypes created at the start of the localization process. Moving on from the logo, if you look closely at the file select text, the 1 and 2 player sprites match the Japanese version, which had a slightly different font.
What a bunch of dorks. This is the biggest. What a bunch of dorks, like, looking so deep into these things. And the fact that it's like, I love it. I mean that in the best way possible. It's so dorky. The number 2 is different than the Japanese version in the US. It's I legitimately love it. Thank you guys for doing this.
Speaking of fonts, the letter graphics used within text boxes and level names are completely different from the final game. The final game uses a much thicker font, a style you tend to see featured in various other games during this era.
That works well.
Past the title screen, there are still many more differences to be seen. Upon entering Yoshi's house, the sign bearing his signature has a stray pixel on the S. The sign's font is also slightly different, and it lacks shading. The last graphical difference that we could notice in-game is for Princess Toadstool at the end cutscene. Her graphics are in a transitional phase between the Japanese version and retail US version. Peach's sprite is the same as the Japanese version. However, when she kisses Mario...
I'm looking here, I'm trying to see if I actually notice any differences. Okay, this is the same, prototype versus Japanese.
It's the same as the American retail version.
I love that, man. Like, what a silly little change here. That's great. I love nerding out.
The prototype also contains quite a few graphical changes only noticeable with hacking tools. As you can see here, there's various leftover Japanese characters. You'll also notice a few X tiles. It's a common practice to X out tiles to indicate they are unused. There's also something else quite interesting of note. At the end of the graphics data is an early font set. This font matches the one from the GigaLeaks with the file name moji-1.cgx.bak, which is located with various The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past assets.
So they're going to use the same font as Zelda potentially, which is, I mean, once again, I love nerding out to this stuff. This is so fun, like exhilarating to watch. Please go subscribe to Force of Illusions. Like, how fun is this?
An early draft of the game's script can be expected in a localization prototype. Most of the text differences in our build are minute. For example, Yoshi's signature at the start of the game is fully capitalized. This is not true for the retail version. For various message block hints, the Super Famicom controller's button colors are referenced rather than their respective letters. The text explaining how to pick up shells references the blue and green buttons, which were changed to X and Y buttons in the retail game.
You see it right here. Use the blue or green button. That's interesting. That's really fascinating.
This is because for international Super Nintendo controllers, the button colors were changed from red, yellow, blue, and green to 2 different shades of purple. To eliminate any confusion, the localizers later opted on referencing buttons by their corresponding letter.
Let me know down in the comments. I always think the Super Famicom looks so much cooler. I mean, I grew up with this controller, but the Super Famicom 4-color, I mean, that's just, I love that color scheme. And that to me is iconic. So much so that actually when I was in Japan several years ago, I bought a Super Famicom just pretty much mainly for that controller. It's so cool.
A minor grammatical error can be found in the Switch Palace. After hitting a big switch in the final game, the message ends with, "Your progress will also be saved." In the prototype, "also" is mistakenly moved to the back, making it, "Your progress will be saved also." Unsurprisingly, the credits feature differences too. The Boo Buddies and the Big Boo are referred to as Boo Diddley and Boo Jackson, respectively. Boo Diddley was previously used in Super Mario Bros. 3's manual and was a reference to the American blues singer Ellis Bo Diddley McDaniel. Boo Jackson is a reference to the American baseball and football player Bo Jackson, who at the time was playing baseball for the Chicago White Sox.
That's awesome. I love everything, but I didn't realize they actually changed that. I mean, there's so many things that people find when digging, and if you go through the comments of this, you know, this guy here says there's a minor graphical bug that can be seen in the bottom left corner of this. When you rescue Princess Toadstool, hopefully Nintendo can patch them out before release. We'll take a look at that here in a little bit once we're done. This is where things get fun.
This prototype contains many debug features, which would have made localization much easier for developers. For starters, Mario will not die when the stage timer hits 0, and is free to roam the overworld wherever he chooses.
Now we know what it is. They were playing on a debug mode, hence why, oh man, like now, look, everybody can move past the idea of why they were running around without that. I wonder if you can go up to the secret area. That's what I want to know. By the way, look at the font. This looks different, doesn't it? I feel like it does.
You could feasibly walk to Bowser's Castle without beating the first level. Additionally, the code usually used to exit a completed stage, simultaneously pressing both start and select, will now instantly complete the level and unlock the path ahead. If these features weren't powerful enough, pressing the select button on the overworld map will also toggle between different colors of Yoshi.
That's crazy.
Similarly, while inside a stage, you're able to hold up on the control pad and press select to cycle through various power-ups. Holding L and A while wearing a cape will let you fly instantly and for as long as possible. Pressing it again will let Mario move anywhere around on the screen. Similar debug functions can also be seen in games like Super Mario 64. There's also some codes related to the castle levels. After beating a castle and watching the ending cutscene, you can press L and R to replay the scene. You can press L, R, and up to view the next castle cutscene.
Ooh, that's nice. I love seeing debug features. I'm such a dork when it comes to those things because as somebody who doesn't know a whole lot about video game development, I appreciate when you can just mess with levels. I think that's so much fun. Oh my gosh. Okay, here we go. Now comes the good stuff. Level differences. Yes, I'm literally rubbing my hands together. If you made it this far, once again, hit the subscribe button. If you're watching over on the Starter and Craig channel, go over and open up a new tab. Find Craig Talks News. There's a link in the description as well as down below. And of course, subscribe to Forest Evolution, who brought us this great content. How awesome.
Due to this being a localization prototype, there are not a ton of level differences.
Yeah, oh, my heart. I was hoping for some major changes.
The ones there are minor, and often holdovers from the Japanese version. For example, the final special level, simply called Funky, ends with a series of coins that spells out "You are Super Player." This was lifted from the Japanese version. The final North American game includes the missing A before Super Player. A little known fact about Super Mario World is that pressing L and R over a completed castle will let you re-enter it.
Yep.
In the prototype, this has not yet been implemented. Pressing L and R over a castle does nothing, much like the Japanese version of the game. Donut Plains 2 contains perhaps the easiest difference to miss. In the final game, there's an extra yellow block at the beginning, containing a super mushroom. In the prototype, that's gone. You're stuck as Mini Mario for most of the level. Staying in Donut Plains, if we go to the secret ghost house, the wall next to this door has not been extended to cover the background. In the retail US version, the wall has been extended to cover the empty section of the screen.
Oh my gosh, I love that somebody's like, what about the wall at the end of Ghost House Donut Plains? Like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. And these tiny, tiny little things. Oh, I'm just such a nerd.
Star Road is where things get more interesting. As already mentioned, the player is free to roam the overworld without beating a single level. Going to a Star Road point on the overworld without unlocking the prior stage will lead to something entirely different. For the first star point, it's an exact duplicate of Donut Plains 1. For the second point, it's a vertical test room used for testing out graphic layouts for slopes. For the third point, it's an empty stage where Mario dies instantly. For the fourth and fifth points, it's a literal test room, a room with the word test written out in yellow blocks. Attempting to go to the special world without unlocking the previous level will yet again lead you to this very same room. But the infamous unused No Yoshi's cutscene will play beforehand.
I didn't know that existed, and that's fun to see, the infamous version. I mean, that's what a cool... I'm guessing that was put in front of the ghost houses before. That was never used.
Thank you for tuning into this Forest of Illusion episode. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our other releases or future content. If you have any development kits or prototype cartridges, feel free.
It just kind of ended right there. Yes, please go subscribe to Forest of Illusion. How great was that, man? Like I said, I know that you just saw me nerd out for the last 15 minutes about this stuff. And I love watching these type of things. So if anything like this does get thrown out, hit me up on Discord, hit me up on Twitter. Please send them my way because I love checking out betas and lost prototypes and hacks of classic games into modern games. I saw one of those actually recently. There was an outstanding Ninja Turtles and Streets of Rage hack, which I talked about over on the Craig Talks news channel. Once again, I'll put a link to it. I'll tell you, I'll just do it right here. Boom, subscribe right there. Just click my face. You can do it right here. Click my face to watch whatever, to subscribe to the channel you're watching. Click over here to watch to subscribe to the other channel, either the Craig Talk News or Stuttering Craig, depending on what channel you're on. And click here to watch the Streets of Rage video over on the Craig Talks News channel, the Streets of Rage Ninja Turtle one. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. See you guys next time here on Craig Talks News and the Stuttering Craig channel.